すごく長い動画になると思いますけれども、日本に行く前に日本語を勉強している皆さんのことを思って、どうしてもお伝えしたいことがありましたので、この動画を録画することにしました。少しでもお役に立てたら嬉しいなって思っております。はじめまして、サコスカヤ・ヤナと申します。日本語の教師、通訳者、翻訳者、そして日本のツアーガイドとしても働かせていただいております。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。2015年に私は日本語能力試験の N1 に合格しました。でも、日本に初めて行ったのは、その2年後、2017年でした。で、どうやって私は日本に行かずに、日本語能力試験の最も高いレベルに合格できたかと考えてみたら、10個のポイントが思い浮かびました。この動画では、その10個のポイントをご紹介したいと思っております。皆さんの勉強の参考になれば嬉しいなって思っております。それでは始めましょう。Thing number one. And this is something that I've had from the start, from my first encounter with Japanese culture, and that has become a life-defining thing for me. And this thing is self-fueling enthusiasm. Probably this is something that you have or don't have, so if we turn it into actions, I would say that this is fuel your enthusiasm. Let me explain. Learning Japanese is a long journey. I have a video in which I talk in great detail about how long and actually how hard this journey is. And I think on average, it takes around 6 years of intense studies. It's important, 6 years of quite intense studies to reach to fluency. And I know that there are people and creators on YouTube who made this faster, like they reach fluency in 2 or 3 years. And I think this is a great example for us that this is doable, but also I strongly believe that this is a great exception from the general rule that it takes around 6 years of intense studies to reach from 0 to N1, the highest level of JLPT examination. So imagine that you are going on a road trip. Let's imagine that you have your food expenses and accommodation expenses covered, and the only thing that you need to care about is the fuel for your vehicle. In language learning, the vehicle with which we move forward is our kokoro, which is mind, heart, and soul, everything in one Japanese word, kokoro. And if you have some initial amount of enthusiasm, you will go somewhere, but the question is, where would you get another portion of fuel of your enthusiasm? So a good thing at the beginning of your language learning journey is when you learn something and you go like, wow, this is so cool, I want to learn more. And you learn more and you get this feeling, wow, again, this is so cool, I want to learn even more. So this is how this self-fueling enthusiasm looks like, and it will take you to the most wondrous places. So what do you do if you actually don't feel this self-fueling enthusiasm? I can think about 3 things here, and the first one is that you can actually fuel your enthusiasm. So remember the moment when you thought, oh, I think I would like to learn Japanese. What was that? There was this spark of enthusiasm, and if you blow on this spark, probably it will become a fire, and that will fuel your enthusiasm. So what was it? Was it, for example, anime? Probably you like watching anime, and when you watch a new episode of the series that you like, you feel this, oh, I want to learn Japanese again. If that's your case, please continue watching anime and use it actively in your learning journey. For example, you can analyze some dialogues with your teacher, and you can become an expert in listening and in colloquial speech and even in some culture. So this is a great source of learning Japanese. So please consciously fuel your enthusiasm, whatever fuels your passion. It can be an anime, martial arts, ikebana, anything that you like that will help you along the way. Thing number 2 that I want to talk about here is that actually you don't need this enthusiasm to reach fluency. You can reach fluency with your effort and dedication, just like that, just like many things that we learn in life without much enthusiasm for it, because we are just human beings. We can learn things, we can master things on a decent way without like real love in them. I'm not sure if it is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's true. We can do that. So if you got, for example, a job in Japan, or if you got married to a Japanese person and you like need your language in life and you don't feel really enthusiastic about that, that's okay. Just start your studies, get a teacher, get a system, and probably like watch more of this video for some tips that will help you along the way, and you will get there. You will do it. One thing I would suggest here I would suggest that you explore the culture, because the Japanese culture is so broad and rich and marvelous, and there must be something that will give a spark to your enthusiasm, and just your language learning journey will be more enjoyable. And then number 3 here, for persons who don't really feel this enthusiasm towards Japanese, this self-fueling enthusiasm, this passion, I would suggest that you explore the world around you and the world within you to find some sphere, some subject, some activity where you have this self-fueling enthusiasm. Honestly, this is one of the best feelings in the world, in the life. It can be life-defining, career-defining, wealth-defining, relationship-defining, end-of-life-defining, legacy-defining. Just this finding your thing is so precious. It gives so much to the person who has found it. And I strongly believe that is worth looking for. It is worth investing time and effort in exploring the world and finding your thing. So, and maybe this is the journey that is the major journey of your life, and not learning Japanese. So really, go for it. Go find your thing. One of the things that I myself did at the very start of my language learning journey, and that I highly recommend, is getting a teacher. Taking some classes of Japanese with a teacher or a tutor. So what does a good teacher do for the student? They give the student confidence. They do it in 2 ways. The first way is that they explain the rule and the context of the rule. There is this problem with self-studying that a person learns something from the book or from a YouTube video, or they heard something in an anime, or they heard a native speaker say something, and they probably, even if they kind of understand how it works, they have this big, scary question in their head. Am I saying this correctly? Am I saying this correctly? They always doubt if what they are saying sounds Japanese or whatever language they are studying. And a good teacher explains not only the rule, but the context of the rule. For example, this is an absolute rule. With no exceptions, we can confidently use it everywhere. Let's do it. And it boosts confidence in the student that they don't think, am I saying this correctly? They just say things in the language that they are learning. Or a teacher can say, so for example, there are two types of adjectives, and first let's learn to recognize the types, and we have one rule for this type and one rule for that type. Let's practice it, and that's it. And the student goes, okay, I think I can do that. That doesn't sound pretty complicated. Let's just learn and practice. This is confidence. This is the confidence that is the core of the journey to fluency. That the person doesn't think, am I saying this correctly? They just speak. And so this is the first way to explain the rules and the scope, the context of the rules. The second thing is that the teacher provides feedback. And it again helps to get rid of this scary question, am I saying things correctly? Because the teacher can confirm, yes, you are saying this correctly, please go on. I want to know what is the next thing that you're going to say. Or the teacher can say, now sounds a bit off, we would better say this, like this here, or let's revise the rule, let's go back and just check if you remember this and this and this nuance. That's it. And the person can feel that, okay, this was not really correct, but this one I will now remember, and I can be sure and confident that I'm saying things correctly. And again, this will help just to speak, just to express oneself, because this is what the language is about, not just practicing some abstract grammar patterns, but we use language to joke, to say that we love somebody, to argue, to have the hotel room changed because there is something wrong with the current room. This is when we use the language as the tool, but not as the subject that we are thinking, if we are saying these things correctly. So this is what I recommend. Have some basic confidence and invite a person to help you get this basic confidence. Even if you are a champion of self-studying process, I would suggest that you can have just some of the classes to have this basic confidence and base of the language. It will just boost your self-studying process. You will go so fast and so far away to most wondrous places because you know how to do that. But like this wise man or wise lady at the start can just help you with the process a bit. Alternatively, actually, you can have, for example, Q&A sessions once a month or twice a month, just to support your basic language confidence, that you are saying things correctly and that you understand the material that you are self-studying correctly. And I understand that everyone is in a very different financial situation, and getting a teacher is an investment. And okay, let's be honest, Japanese is not very important skill in life. We can live without Japanese, let's be honest here. But I think, if you feel this enthusiasm towards Japanese, I would suggest that you take some classes. There are online platforms on internet connecting students and tutors, and some of the tutors work at quite a low rate, and they have good reviews, so you can probably make it as a birthday present for yourself, to have a feel of these classes, to have some inspiration, to have this basic confidence that someone can confirm that you are studying this correctly, that you understand the language. And then you can continue on your self-studying journey, if you prefer to do that. And you will be that journey will be just more confident and joyful. And of course, if you would like to have classes with me, I invite you to follow the links in the description and send me a message, and we will discuss how I can help on your learning journey. As you have probably guessed from the previous part, I'm a big fan of rules. Why? Because, apart from my native language, I am fluent in English and Japanese. I can survive in French and Spanish, and I can speak at beginner level Icelandic and Serbian. And I can do that because I know the rules. I'm a grammatist at heart, and I strongly believe that vocabulary can grow, and a person can, for example, use flashcards to learn more vocabulary, but grammar is the core of the language and the heart of the language, and the invisible structure that we use to understand and to be understood. Vocabulary is kind of visible, and grammar is invisible, and we have to look into those invisible things to get a hold of them and to use in our speech, in our communication. This is, I think, like kind of magic of the language, that you can look at those invisible things and understand them. So I really suggest learning rules and knowing rules at the level where you can explain the rules to some other person. This is the good, like the expert knowledge of the rules. And I can imagine, for example, that a person creates an account on social media, the learning account, and they share the things that they learned during the day, for example, and thus they can connect with like-minded people all around the world, and they can support each other, boost motivation, support each other's confidence, and continue their learning journey with joy and pleasure. One of the things that I mentioned in the previous video are flashcards, and this is what I did to reach fluency. Well, I started learning Japanese 22 years ago, and at that time we had button phones with SMS and cool ringtones that were just appearing on the market. And we didn't have any mobile applications, we had hardly any software, so I was making the paper cards with kanji and the words, and I was going through the cards to memorize the kanji and the words. And it turned out to be a really good tool for learning stuff. Well, Japanese is the language where you have to keep thousands of elements in your memory, and well, as you should better start early with cards, and eventually your brain will develop this kind of muscle for memorizing new stuff. It takes some time, but it will happen, and then your brain will be like hungry for new information, and it will be easier and easier. And I remember specifically when I was studying from N2 to N1, there were already mobile applications, and I was commuting to the university by metro. And during this commuting time, I was just flipping through flashcards on my phone, and there was this, I think it's called interval memory system or something like that, and it's really helpful. I recommend that. And I was going through the flashcards, and during this commuting time for several months, I just learned plus 1000 kanji, and I think plus 2500 words. Just like that. It is as easy as that, just going through the flashcards. One important thing that I want to highlight here is if you are at the beginner level of your learning journey, and probably you are, I would suggest that you don't go for the apps, but you make the paper cards and you write the words and the kanji and the characters on them by your hand. This is important, and I will cover it in the next part. And if you are N3 and upper, you can use the apps with the cards already in those. because your brain is already used to the graphics, to the language, and writing the cards is not necessary already. But first, reach N3. This is like a turning point in this journey, and then things are going to be a lot easier. Flashcards. Do flashcards. Use flashcards. They will help you reach fluency. I mentioned it in the previous part, so let's talk about writing. When I was starting my studies, I was writing a lot. I was writing each character for several lines, each kanji for several lines. I had thick notebooks of just writing the same character over and over again. Also, all the exercises in the textbook that I used at that time, I did in the written form. Even the oral exercises, just everything that the textbook offered, I wrote in my copybook. And so I had many copybooks of just exercises. And I didn't know that then, but now, as someone who holds a degree in psychology, I can say that when we write, our brain switches to a learning mode. And what I mean by learning mode is that our brain starts creating new neural connections. These new neural connections are the physiological essence of the learning process. We make all this effort by flashcards, by writing and so on, for one physiological thing, for new neural connections between like the meaning and the sound of the word, for example. And Japanese is kind of complicated here, because if we learn European languages, they have many similar roots, and it is a lot easier to learn a European language, for example, for an English native speaker, than Japanese, because Japanese is really different in terms of everything. There are some loaned words from the European languages, like ice cream, which is ice cream, but the majority of the words are like native Japanese or come from Chinese. So it's really a lot to learn from zero. And of course, the writing system, those thousands of characters to remember that this means this. This is a really big task for the brain. And one easy thing that we can do to help our brain to do the double effort of connecting strange things between each other is to write, to just like switch to the learning mode, to open the doors to the new information, new material, and create those new neural connections. This is it. This is what we are learning the language for in terms of physiology. So I would say probably I would reiterate the thing that I mentioned earlier. If you are under N3, I suggest that you write a lot, that you do all the exercises in the written form, and that will really help you to build those connections in your brain for the second part of your journey to fluency. And if your level is N3 and higher, you can relax a bit, because your brain is already wired for this, is hungry for new information, and your brain knows places where to store that information, and you can survive and reach the higher levels of proficiency in language without writing so much. But at the beginning of your learning journey, write a lot, and it will take you to fluency. Let's talk about kanji. The problem and the beauty of the kanji is that they have a lot of things about them. They have the Chinese reading, the Japanese reading, the graphics, and they have the meaning of all it in our native language, if our native language is not Japanese. And a person who learns Japanese has to learn everything of that. And I often see this recommendation on YouTube on how to learn the kanji in an effective way. the recommendation is don't learn the kanji, but learn the words. As for me, I just learned the kanji. I memorized the Chinese reading, the Japanese reading, the graphics, and the meaning in my native language. And it works for me. And in this way, I learned more than 2,000 of kanji. I can read for pleasure. And of course, I'm still in love with the kanji. And I suggest that you check out this playlist where I share some of my favorite amazing Japanese kanji because they are really beautiful because of this, the whole range of things that they have about them and the nuances of meaning. This is just very beautiful. This is there is always a discussion going in around Japanese language. Should we just give up on kanji, abolish kanji, and stop using kanji? And the answer for this question is no. This is the beauty of the language. This is the richness of the language. It is hard, but let's use it because it is rich in beauty. I don't know how to reiterate this, but just trust me. This is really, kanji are beautiful and rich in meaning and bring joy to the heart of the person who opens the heart towards the kanji. As for some practical recommendations, I think Basic Kanji Book is a really classic book on kanji. And one of the advantages of the book is that it gives the common readings of the kanji and that are just enough for the basic knowledge. There are kanji with numerous readings, and some of them are common, some of them are rare, and we can start with just the common readings. And this book provides the overview of the common readings. And as for rare readings, we can reach, I don't know, N2 or N1 and explore and encounter those rare readings there. But as for the beginner steps on the Japanese learning journey, let's just focus on the common readings. So learn the kanji. I would say learn the kanji by heart. Know the readings, know the words, and it will take you to fluency. The next thing that I want to cover here is being responsible at Japanese listening, meaning understanding every bit of what is said at your level of language competency. I have a video called How to Get Better at Japanese Listening, and in this video I cover the general approach for beginner levels under N3 and more advanced levels, N3, N2, N1, the general strategy how to get better at Japanese listening. And I don't really have much to add to what I say here, so I really invite you to check out this video. But today I want to highlight one important thing, which is being responsible at Japanese listening. What I mean here is that when you reach fluency in Japanese, at some point of this learning journey, you will most likely start to get paid for your knowledge. Probably you will do some translations, or you will engage in some activities as an interpreter. One way or another, you will get money for your knowledge. One does not simply reach fluency in Japanese without getting paid. That's good news. And this good news comes with responsibility. Imagine that you participate in business negotiations and you, for example, you got the general idea of what the other side of the negotiations was saying, but you missed the important details of the terms and conditions of the deal that is discussed. And imagine that the company that hired you lost money because of that. Will you be able to compensate the money that the company lost because you missed some important details? Well, in some cases, probably yes, but in the majority of cases, probably not. And most likely you will be fired because this attitude that you got something but you missed some important details is irresponsible and unprofessional. When you work with the language professionally, this is your responsibility to make sure that you understand every bit of what is said. This is your job, this is your responsibility. So what I suggest is be a professional since day one. Even if you are a beginner, probably there is not much that you can understand. That is why I recommend listening to the exercises within your comfort zone, within the scope of the grammar that you have already learned, and making sure that you understand every bit of what is said, because this is being a professional at the beginner level. And when you reach N3 and higher levels, you can give yourself a challenge and try to understand everything, try to decipher every bit of what is said. This will make you like a serious professional in learning in Japanese. So this attitude, as I strongly believe, this attitude of deciphering, of understanding every detail will help you reach not only fluency, but it will help you to land your dream job and probably get good money for that. Another thing that I did regularly along my learning journey was preparing talks on different subjects, and my teacher provided me feedback on these talks, and I learned so much from this feedback because Japanese language is very different from European languages. It is different language family, different mentality, different values, different way of life, and of course, different way of saying things. And we, in the majority of cases, we cannot just take a sentence in English, for example, and translate it into Japanese word by word. No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. We need to know how this is said in Japanese. It sounds kind of unfair, but this is how it is. And it is actually quite hard to learn on one's own, but it is very easy to pick from feedback from a native speaker or from an experienced speaker. So this is why with my students, I encourage everybody to prepare talks on any subject that they like at their level of Japanese competency. And they talk about their day, their work, their favorite TV shows, books, characters, about favorite thought experiments, about Buddhist practices, depending on their level of Japanese competency. And I provide feedback, and they learn how to say these things in Japanese. Even if you are mostly self-studying, you can use AI for this purpose. You can prepare a talk or a text and upload it into the system and ask for feedback, and most likely it will provide quite a decent feedback on your input. So my piece of advice for you is be an active speaker. Use the language that you are learning for self-expression. Ask for feedback and learn from this feedback, and this will take you to fluency. Second to last thing that I want to talk about today is using the JLPT levels as milestones for tracking your progress. JLPT is the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, the standard international examination for evaluating proficiency in Japanese. It has 5 levels, and 5 is the easiest one, and N1 is the hardest one, usually equal to proficiency in Japanese. Reasonably, it takes 6 years of quite intense studies to reach N1. I passed N1 in 2015, 2 years before I went to Japan for the first time, and I want to share what helped me along the way. Probably it will help your learner journey a bit easier. So what helped me was using the JLPT levels for tracking my progress. What I mean here is that each of the levels has a fixed set of grammar patterns, kanji and vocabulary that is used at the examination, and it doesn't mix the levels. So I mean that they won't ask N1 grammar at N3 examination, or they won't ask N2 vocabulary at N4 examination. So it makes the set of what you have to learn evident in advance. So you know in advance what to study to pass the examination. So what do you do to prepare for the exams? As for N5, practically any beginner book will take you to N5. Most popular and classic ones are Genki and Minna no Nihongo. They are really good. I can recommend them to you. And starting from N4, there are sets of books for each level. So there is usually a kanji book, a grammar book, a vocabulary book. Sometimes there is a reading book, and there are tons of exercises, of listening exercises online for you to practice listening. So the method is you take the set of books and you study the books, you study each book. You can do it simultaneously, or, for example, go first with grammar, then with vocabulary. It doesn't really matter. Do it as you like. So you study the books, you memorize the content of the books, you take the exam, and most likely you pass the exam if you have the books in your head. That's it. That is as easy as that. What else can I say here? You can also use this method for celebrating half milestones. For example, if you finished half of the books for N2, you can actually celebrate that you are halfway from N3 to N2. Learning Japanese is a very long journey, and this is a lot of effort, and for me it was really important to celebrate my progress, and I invite you to celebrate your progress using, for example, the levels of JLPT as milestones. So this is what helped me a lot, and I hope that it will help you on your learning journey. And the last thing that I want to talk here is taking on a healthy challenge. As I said before, one does not reach fluency in Japanese without getting paid for it, all right? That's good news about our profession. So there will be time on your learning journey when you will be offered a translation or interpretation project and money for that. And try to evaluate how doable it is for you. If it is a serious medical translation, I think that you should be N1 to do it responsibly. But there are many more doable translation projects, like manga or anime subtitles, or lyrics for a Japanese song, or, for example, meeting a Japanese person at the airport and showing them around the town. This sounds like doable, right? My first job was translating the labels for cosmetic products. I think there was a shampoo, a body wash, a cleansing oil, and some other items, and I was translating the labels, the features of the product, and how to use the product, and probably even the ingredients. And I didn't know many of the words, but the grammar was okay. And so I worked on this translation for several hours, and I finished it, and I got money for that. And I was very proud of myself that I reached the level where my knowledge of Japanese can help other people, and I can get money for that. I was, I think, at N3 at that time, and this is probably that is the time when you can expect some opportunities for making money on your passion for Japanese. So I invite you to take on this kind of healthy challenge. And let me share one secret from the life of translators and interpreters. In many cases, when a translator and interpreter gets a new project, they don't know much about the subject. The thing is that in the majority of cases, Japanese translation is required for very narrow subjects like, I don't know, tires for trucks, or an innovative new type of Japanese, I don't know, syringes. And so these are really narrow subjects. And when a translator or interpreter get this type of translation project, what do? They study. They study the subject. They learn the vocabulary. They look for any grammar patterns that are used to talk about this subject. They learn the context, how the things are said and written around the subject, and they get ready to do this written translation or to participate in the oral translation. A person grows through taking on a healthy challenge. And this is what I invite you to do on your journey to fluency in Japanese. So there you have it. 10 things I did and I invite you to do to reach fluency in Japanese even before you go to Japan for the first time. Let me know in the comments which one resonated with you the most or whether you have any questions. I invite you to subscribe to this channel for more Japanese learning content, and as always, follow your creative heart, learn Japanese. I'll see you next time.